Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. It's one of my favorite programs, and always anxious to see what's coming up. And we are going to see today three fantastic, interesting, at least, games. And with that, I would like to introduce Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to
Thank
the
you very
show.
much for having me on again.
Okay, excellent. And also Professor Dan Fleetwood, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sasha. Hi, Ken.
Great
Yeah.
to see you. And finally, the founder of the network, three times Florida chess champion, Nick Paliveda. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Simon.
hmm
So let's go right away. Ken, if you are ready.
That's right. Well, we had
Games.
three marquee events finish within the past week.
Fantastic.
That is the America's Cup, the Women's Grand Prix in Nicosia, and the European Championship. And I have one game from each. And in fact, the Titanic Clash from the open section of the America's Cup, the game that where Hikaru Nakamura prevailed over Fabiano Caruana, is highly instructive. So
The highest quality game. Absolutely incredible.
yes, cut and thrust at the beginning, and then some very instructive endgame judgment, because Hikaru tricked Fabiano in what seemed like a very quiet endgame.
hmm
Okay, let's see. Slemio when it appears on the screen. Um,
Yeah, I see it.
okay.
We got
Okay,
it.
so this was the first of the two rounds playing at classical time control, although the fastest norm giving classical time control, 90 minutes plus 30-second increment, but should be enough to work out the vicissitudes of the game. But crucial to point out, there was no extra time at turn 40, and that may have played some role in what happened as well. Okay, so Queen's Gambit declined, but with a Catalan riff. And so it's all very normal play. Black is threatening, but not really following through to keep the pawn with b5. White obviously has great pressure on the long diagonal if and when black plays b5, and here it comes. So now I guess there are all sorts of issues with whether white can take advantage by playing knight e5. Knight e5 leads to wild play. White will capture, white capture on e5, then black black will capture on e5, then white will take on a8, and black will take white's pawn on d4 with compensation. But we play a different crazy cut and thrust way instead. White challenges black's advanced pawns while keeping all the tension on the diagonal. Black decides to relieve some of the tension, and that makes white's knight go back to here. And now b4, wow, a protected pass pawn for black on move 9 of a position, but white can undermine that as well. So by a3, and that does, however, though, give black time to cover up the weaknesses on the diagonal. I'm sure there are many variations that would need to be looked at, with when and whether white can play knight e5 to unsheath the long diagonal, or a different knight move. But anyway, black has now covered the long diagonal, so white plays knight e5. It's still a pin. And in fact, maybe if black captured on e5, the bishop would be a more valuable prize than the rook in a position where the light squares are going to be very important. So here, this is, again, I'm sure this is book. I don't have chess base in my office.
So, Ken, if it's book, it's not something that gets played a lot in high-level correspondence. So I have a suspicion that with best play, this is a little bit sketchy. But it's probably one of those lines where you would have to know exactly what you're doing or have an engine to be able to prove that.
It certainly was prepared by
Yep.
probably both these players.
Yep.
Because both players navigate this very well. So black deflects.
Oh, hello.
Yes. So part of the point of this is that if white plays queen takes c2, then knight takes d4 is really good for black. Okay, white's gonna the light squared bishop's going to disappear. Black will have better development. Look at all those pieces on the white row. However, white is able to get rid of black's knight at the cost of that light squared bishop. Now, the whole argument in the game, 10 moves from now, is whether black's light squared bishop is the better piece than his knight. But let's see. So we play here, and now white takes the pawn, and black's light squared bishop now rules the roost. And I have to say, I mean, the engine still says white is fine, normal opening, slight plus. But white's position looks suspect to me. No development, queen on b2, black has the two bishops. Why isn't this better for black? Now the computer wants black to play h5. The crazy,
Sure, why not?
Crazy attack. Why not? But
So I love how engines have become like these raging 1900s, only calculating everything correctly.
Yeah, you're right. So anyway, so there must be some. I mean, maybe black has to fear white playing f3 and e4. So Fabiano Caruana decided to remove the bishop. It's maybe a little significant here that Hikaru has used absolutely no time, whereas Fabiano has used up half an hour. So maybe Hikaru was further into his preparation than Fabiano was. At any rate, although the engine now shows 0.45 plus, which is a definite plus, it doesn't last very long. And the engine actually wants white to play f3 enterprisingly, but white instead, understandably, develops his pieces. Hey, that's how you're supposed to play chess, right? So now, wait, threatening me. Okay, now f3 has to be played, and now black simplifies a bit and wins a pawn temporarily. It's not the type of pawn that you would expect to hold on to. That depends on whether white can prevent black from supporting it with e5. White's knights are very good in this position, and white now has an advantage in development. Black has not castled yet. Okay, we castle now, and white goes about regaining the pawn. Okay, so now the engine actually shows this is a completely even position. So both players should be credited for playing well, except we weren't watching the little black box at upper left. Caruana suddenly has only 14 minutes left. And ordinarily, I would say, wow, it's only 14 minutes left, and it's almost halfway to move 40. But there's no increment in move 40. So this is time left to play the game. If we go back and see where Caruana used the time, it actually was the move on the move queen d5. That was 17 minutes.
Really?
Yes.
What was he looking at? What were the alternatives?
Well, you couldn't take on d4 because you would be losing the bishop.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, queen d5 looks perfectly natural.
Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So yeah, it does. But at any rate, yes, this maybe black thought that, well, I simplified the position. I didn't see a way to get a strong edge as black, so I should be able to hold this, and let's trade some more pieces. Okay, so just natural moves. You would think that black would be able to liquidate pawns on the queen side, and then there's nothing left to play for, but that doesn't happen. Okay, so now here is where we put the question of whether black's bishop or black's knight is the better piece. Okay, now actually black has to capture on d3, otherwise black would lose a piece. So he captured on d3, and which piece do you want to take for white? Do you reflexively take the bishop because it's a bishop, or do you take black's knight?
I would take knight.
Yeah, to take knight
gives you winning chances.
Your judgment is right. Yeah, white took the knight on the 7th rank.
Right.
Okay, and now black's bishop goes back to a6. And the thing is, the bishop is a little bit dominated right now. The only square it can go to is c8, which is not a great square. And black's a pawn is a little bit latently weak, but so is white's b pawn. If black could get his bishop to e3, then there would certainly be a trade of pawns. So white plays rook d6, which does allow the bishop onto b7, but it is also setting up that white's rook can go to other squares on the seventh rank. Well, and the computer does say that is the best move, so we'll let it go. Black should play bishop b7 probably.
The position still is equal at this
Yeah,
point.
it's equal. But here, Caruana makes the most natural move you can think of, and it's an error. So this is why chess is difficult to play. So king e7, what could be more natural? Centralize the king, attack white's rook. But it actually gives white a tempo to sort of transfer the rook to control more squares and put a little bit of a question to black's pawn. And the rook, coming to c7 anyway. White could have played the rook to c7 earlier, but now with check, it's going to cause black more of a dilemma. So Caruana decided to at least remove the check aspect, but consumed more than 4 minutes doing so. Got 30 seconds.
Horrible.
Okay. So,
What was wrong with king d7?
so king d7 actually loses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What's wrong with it?
I meant to show this. Sorry, I prepared to show this.
Yeah, I figured that.
So this now is really ticklish for black. So it's hard to preserve the pawn, and even at a4, white can just take it.
Yeah, so you get bishop
C8, and
c8
now
or bishop c7.
c4, and it's very clear that white's knight is better than black's bishop.
All right. Okay.
So instead, Caruana parked his king over here, and now here's the final, most instructive part of the game coming up. So as black, your goal is to liquidate pawns on the queen side.
Right.
And then you can presumably hold even a pawn down on the king side. Although on the king side, white's knight is definitely better than black's bishop. Okay, so white puts the question of how you're going to defend that pawn. Black plays bishop b7, and now white plays. Okay, so this move is judged a little error by the edge. It says white should have gone about the business playing knight c4. Okay, so white plays e4, and now here's the instructive move, a case of timing. So the correct move for black in this position is just to play rook a6, a nice move, taking a couple of squares. Knight b6 isn't in the air anymore, and the point of this, though, is if white plays knight c4, the move that white could have played last time, now a4 is timed right, because b4 would even give white having to scramble to hold this position. Okay, it gives black a good pawn that can't be corralled and challenged so easily. Okay, well, actually, white has to give up the b pawn in order to get it back. So what was mistimed in Caruana's play, with 6 minutes left, is that he played a4, but that did not liquidate the pawn.
Yeah, because he plays
And
b4.
now white has more solid control over the dark squares on the queen side. So it's still not lost. Computer could certainly hold this as black, but Caruana manages, with being short of time, managed to get a lost position in just a few more moves. G5 would have been good last time. Actually, I take that back. I'm misremembering something. Caruana doesn't get a lost position. He loses a pawn. He creates a position that is 0.00 according to the engine, but where black has to play really carefully. Okay, so now he creates some counterplay. White now is going to round up that pawn. Okay, so black is doing a good job of pushing forward, creating counterplay. Now white's e4 is a weakness. Okay, So we also now have created counterplay by bringing the rook over here. Okay, and the engine shows that black can keep this balance. So white plays knight b1, relocating the knight to defend the e-pawn, or maybe penetrate and come into d5 in some positions. Okay. So white plays king c2. And now, however, black already makes a losing error. So the correct counterplay is to line up the rook on the g file, either immediately or playing rook h2 check first. And that's the only way for black to hold. I was watching the broadcast at this point, and they were obviously using computers like I am to follow it, but they say this is a really tricky and tough position. And they went through a lot of lines. So the larger reality, though, because they were saying this on Hikaru's time, is that Caruana is down to 39 seconds. And the fact that his clock shows 0:39 after a 30-second increment means that already on the previous move, he ran his clock down to 9 seconds. So this is incremental time pressure, whereas Hikaru still has 5 minutes to think about this. And Caruana makes a losing mistake that doesn't even lose for any particular reason. It just loses a needed tempo to win the g-pawn. So now you think you're winning the g-pawn, but you're not counting the what happens correctly. So all rook endings with even pawns are draws, but not this one, b6. And white is too fast. And at this point, Caruana gave up. So definite credit to Hikaru for creating chances in a very quiet position.
Well, yeah, I watched this game during broadcast, and I always had a feel that somehow Nakamura will prevail. He was more confident. He was didn't take too much time on each move as Caruana did. So I just thought that he will just outplay him, and that's what happened.
Right. You may see even from the engine, but it's the zone of one mistake for black. So one mistake enough to lose.
Rook g1 probably could hold in this position.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's too bad.
not only does he have to find rook g1, but then a couple moves later too. So yeah, that really is it's a tough.
Very tough, yeah.
Yes, actually, it's here. This is the point at which the commentators were saying how tricky this is, because because rook takes g3 is mistimed.
Right.
Rook g2 is probably better.
Oh my goodness.
You have to play rook g2 to tie down white's knight, keep white's knight from coming in.
Well, that would take me a lot more than 30 seconds to sort out.
Yes, that's right, to realize that. Yeah. And you have to, so, right. So that's right. That is the key find in the game for this.
Yeah, that would be probably an easy draw. Actually, I don't see how white can play for a win in this position.
Yeah, well, white can play rook a7, of course.
No, bishop takes e4.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, then black is doing all right. Yeah, black could probably even give up the bishop in some lines. Yeah, so the fact of pinning the knight and tying white down to the e-pawn, and if white guards the e-pawn, it's rook takes g3 check. So
fascinating.
Yep.
Okay, let's see his next game.
So another game we can shift focus to Nicosia. I showed last week a nice win by Anna Muzichuk, who won on tie breaks over Zhu Jiner. So I'll show a nice win by Zhu Jiner. There's a particular point about this game I'll come to. And if I really have time, I might contrast this with a game that I don't have lined up to show from the European individual, but was another French defense game where players played with their queens on both sides of the board. This is a much more classical setup.
Yeah, this has been played a lot.
Yeah, versus so it's now I could make a side crack. Maybe Dan could comment on that. Alpha Zero considers French to be lost for black, and maybe
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not.
No, it's not.
Alpha hasn't played enough
Black
tournaments.
has to play carefully, but it's not a loss for black.
right. Yeah, so it's but carefully comes up. So this now, so actually now, if black would just whip off white's bishop, it would be fine. And also, this is what makes chess so difficult. B5 is a fine move for black. Okay,
Mhm.
but B5 is going to be the move getting black into trouble if 3 moves. So you have to time things right. Black plays this, which is a very common motif, often to get counterplay as well as block white on the king side. So this looks fine for black, I have to say. But again, you just have to time.
I've lost this position many times with white.
Okay. Okay.
Not in correspondence chess, but over the board.
Yeah. But but black's just has to, it's the center is very dynamic, very tenuous. And the problem with this move is that it will later and now allow white to plant a piece on c5, and that just gives white too much control over what's happening. Okay. But now here, b4 is the right move for black. Okay.
Mhm.
B4 is going to be a losing move very shortly. Now bishop c5. Okay. So now white is controlling more of the center. Okay. So anyway, black organizes a counterattack. So it's all natural. But now white's attack, however, is going to come faster, except that white lets up on the gas a little bit. Again, this must be standard strategy in positions like this. I think the differentiator is that white's bishop on c5 is a bone in the throat. Okay, so now here's the other judgment call. So the other judgment call is to ask yourself, is black threatening knight e5? So is this really a threat?
Mhm.
Okay, so the computer is able to judge no. So you just play a move like rook d4, and then if we take, okay, now white is still has a much better position here. Black has not yet brought enough activity. White's rook on h4 actually controls b4 very well, and black has a very bad bishop and lots of trouble. In fact, white is actually threatening something quite brilliant here. Queen takes g6 check, rook h8, and rook 1 h7 mate.
Yeah.
So this is so the answer is black is not threatening knight c5, but knight e5. But even with a lot of time on the clock, white decided to take defense against this move, and that let up on the gas. Okay, but now here's the funny thing. You'd think that the move to take advantage of the departure of white's bishop is exactly what Divya Deshmukh played in the game. Let's see. Oh, no, it's the next move. I'm sorry. Yeah, b4 is the right move.
Mhm.
And then a4 was a mistake that actually black could punish by now opening lines en masse with e5. Okay. But instead, black played b3. Sorry, that's the losing move. And it's just a miscalculation, opening lines, but not as actively as e5 would have done. So black gets a nice strong piece, regains the pawn, but white now is going to be able to take control of the position and enjoy much better pieces. So here we go. Okay, so now does black have an attack on the queen side? You might judge yes, looking ahead, but actually not. Black's bishop is attacked, has to move, and now Zhu Jinier makes some very powerful, simple moves, establishing the bishop We even knocked black's rook off the c file, so there's no pressure on c2 anymore. And now this knight is going to swing to g4 and in to give checkmate. Black tries to defend actively, but this is the nifty move in the game.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's crashing through, and black.
Oh, that's well calculated.
Yeah, yes, it is. So black tried h5, and then now hoping to get counterplay against white's king, but it's actually just one check. And it is right here that Divya Deshmukh realized, oh yeah, it's just one check. Well, let's take a look at this. So why can't black play rook takes b3? Okay, so this is what's really, really funny. The only move by white not to get checkmated next move is to create with check.
Under promote.
Okay, under promote. But where is black's king going? Okay. So where is black's king going? You can go here, and now we go here, and this is the
That's
beautiful.
hilarious.
Whoa, ho, 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 ho!
That is hilarious. My
That's a
goodness.
nice mate.
with the knight being attacked. Yeah, so this is one thing where it's a shame that players resign. They should they should
Oh, that's
allow.
beautiful.
What happens if he goes king e7? Can he escape? Can
Right.
he run?
Let's see king
Yeah.
e7 instead. Whoops, I'm sorry. So knight
There you
e8 check. Right. So we played king e7 instead.
Run, as they would say.
Rook h7 check. So you have to see. No, wait, the king's escaping.
Yeah,
So
let's keep running.
let's see. Can we go? Oh, we can't go there. The only place
No, that's forced.
now the cavalry comes in. This is like Napoleon's attack on Moscow. There's a
Seriously.
position with the knights moving in concert.
Just
Okay.
walks him over to the corner.
Yes, walk it over to the corner. Indeed, yeah. Now, the only way black can stave off mate in this position is to sacrifice a rook and get white pieces discombobulate. But king a7 is Napoleon to king a8 is Napoleon to a7 mate. King c8 is now cavalry here, and then Napoleon to d7 mate, which again is a nice little
It's a nice forced mate, either way.
composed parallelism.
That bishop on e5
Wow.
rules the board.
Yeah, roll the board.
That's a good game. He worked
Very
that.
nice.
He worked that one out.
Yep.
It was a nice workout.
It was quite the brilliancy. Maybe deserved to win the tournament, but Anna Muzicuk won on tie breaks.
Right.
Wow,
So,
what a game.
okay, so I have one more game representing the European Championship. Oops, where is it? Oh, I thought I had it in my. So this is a win by Matthias Blubaum. That's funny. No, sorry. I thought I had it in my tab. It reverted somehow. Okay, so this is a win by Blubaum against Badur Jobava.
Wow. Very
So
interesting.
so there's a moment in this game where I want to do an experiment with the computer. So this was the win that put him in position to tie for first on tie breaks.
Mhm.
So this game also has a lot of nice cut and thrust in the beginning. Okay, so is white going to make a broad center and regain the pawn? Well, black has some say in it. Nice bishops come out. Okay, so this is a normal opening edge for white. You might question Jobava's preparation. In any event, Jobava does not have a Jobava bishop. The bishop, Jobava,
Exactly.
white square bishop, got chased around. So we are gearing up for pressure, and it's a matter of where to play these games. So just a lot of maneuvering until white decides to build up on a broad front. Right, so it's interesting. Queen g4, not the move g4 that you might routinely expect to build a broad front here. Well, there's nothing wrong with the move g4 according to the computer, but Matthias Blubaum preferred queen g3. This now gives black a tempo to try to relieve some of the pressure. But what white is going for is to finger the weak squares e6 and g6. And the trade of the light squared bishops will, in fact, help white in that endeavor. So this now, again, most natural move, bringing the knight to a thing in the center. But it's all about timing. So the move that the computer thinks is best looks nonsensical to me, because it seems to just lose a tempo when white captures h5. But, you have to hold things together. So the problem with this move is that it actually allows white to strike. Okay. So this, again, these things have to be judged, but it would have allowed white to capture here, then capture here, and then play here. I think white was going to play queen e3, but this is better. So we're sacrificing lots of stuff, but we come in here, and then rook c3, everything hanging, but it's going to be checkmate.
It's checkmate, right?
Exactly.
So,
Well, and that's why the queen had to go to f7.
yeah, that's true. There you go. Maybe the queen. Yeah, that's
Right?
evident.
But you have to see bishop.
Yeah, you had to
takes
see
the
that.
queen needs
I
to
don't know
go
how
to
you missed
f7.
that. Queen on f7, then you could defend.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw
Well,
that.
computer sees that.
Yep. Computer sees that, and Bluebaum did not. So now black is okay again. Okay, so the queen came out to h5. Okay, this is okay, and we've got a nice endgame, and black is still a little bit worse scoring the computer, but it ought not to be terrible. But now white just plays student body forward. Players certainly have lots of time. Plus, at the European, they do get a lump sum at turn 40.
Oh, okay.
But now black gets punished for one passive move. Okay, it was time to play b5. So I wouldn't think that black's position is so critical. But on the other hand, there are definitely more weak squares in black's camp than in white. And white takes over one of the weak squares, and this is now probably objectively winning.
Real problem.
So
Oh, he has that.
Yeah.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
So taking the pawn isn't good?
let's see,
Or
taking
exchanging isn't good?
I think it keeps the c pawn weak. So you
Yeah, got it.
grab the
Okay.
c
Well,
pawn.
let's see. Actually, this is very, very instructive too. Look at this. So rook e1 is a pile driver. White's going to get to play to e7. So
Wow, very nice.
we capture. Now, if black's knight moves, then e7 is going to be played.
Yeah.
Well, black can resist with this. This is, just a lot of beautiful tactics happening. But now here's the point. We're going to see the point of white's knight being on a5. Okay, that this now is just one thing too many for black to deal with.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, so just ignore the a pawns and
Yeah, just ignore the
go
a
up the
pawn.
middle. That's very nice.
yeah.
The c pawn's weak, and you want that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so black played a6 to be able to duck out, so that if white doubles, black can step aside with the rook. But now white is just coming in, and suddenly things have cleared, and white has two connected pass pawns, and black is just busted. So
Wow.
the rest of the game does not really need much comment.
Mm-hmm. It looks so simple when you're moving these pieces, and every move looks so
I tried to note
obvious.
that earlier in the game it was not simple.
Right.
It's not, yeah, because when you are watching it, oh, anybody would play this. Why would you play anything else? But it's not so simple. I
Yeah.
agree, totally agree.
Yeah, black had the idea of b5, just waited one move too long to play.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously what black was worried about. So let's be a little fair to black. What black is obviously worried about here is the fact of this terrible pin and white infiltrating. So it's a question of how you judge a position like this. I mean, it is worse for black. And if you're not confident that c5 is going to give enough chances, because for all you know, c5 could just allow white a terrible pass pawn. But in fact, actually, knight e5 is fine for black in this position. So you might say, wait a second, this would allow white an all-powerful bishop, and I'm tied down on the 7th rank.
Well, maybe Jobava could see that far, but I couldn't.
Yeah,
That's a long way in the future from there.
right.
You
He's
got to have
very,
really good board vision to see that knight coming on e5.
Mhm.
Jobava is a very sharp tactical player.
Yes, he is.
I'm surprised why he wouldn't play just a King's Indian defense or Banker Gambit or something like that, when he could produce a lot of innovations and tactical play and so on. He's playing some kind of positions. There is no tactical really abilities he could demonstrate. It's just very dry, very technical position. I'm
Well,
surprised.
I will point out one thing about the tournament is that places in the World Cup were at stake, and it's multiple places, like a dozen or so. So there was incentive to play carefully and just make sure you're in the top 10 or so.
I see. Okay, so maybe this is why he wouldn't play his normal openings.
Well, this variation of the Slav is quite double-edged, and the way that he played it is unusual. Kind of retreating into a shell. I mean, you're usually not aiming for that. If you're playing, if you want to have a game like that, there are other ways to get that. So
Yeah.
That's what
Anyway,
happened to me
very nice.
Yep.
in my last game a week ago in Toronto Team Championship. I was playing white, and I decided not to play e4 because people are well prepared. They will play Rio Lopez or a Sicilian or this, and they will know first 25 moves at least. So I decided to play c4 to make complicated game and not to simplify it early enough. And when I already was sitting at the board and my opponent appeared, and I looked at him, and for some reason I felt that if I will play c4, he will play c6. And again, c6, I really couldn't find anything what to play to have even a little bit of an advantage. So I switched back to e4 and I played e4. I won my game, not because of the opening, but I couldn't bring myself playing c4 because of c6. And I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, there's a graphic of a book with graphic of the Caro-Kann as a brick wall.
It is, yeah.
It'd be hard to do.
Yeah.
One thing I flashed briefly was the fact that nobody in the European Championship was 2,700 or above.
Really?
There are only 31 players with that rating nowadays, but still, yeah. So it was really the championship of the second tier trying to break in the top tier.
Well, when the second tier are in the 2600s, that's a pretty high second tier.
Right, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a dog eats dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for showing this
Thank you, Dan, for
games.
giving
And thank you very
comments.
much for today's program, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week, same place, same time. Bye-bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.